Okay, so this is not a heroes and villains. This is protagonist and antagonist.
Yes.
Progonists and angonists.
Yes.
Antonists.
But for lack of a better term,
Antithesis.
because we have trouble saying big words, heroes and villains.
This is the Desynced podcast.
Hi!
Heyo!
We're back to our typical programming now that E3 is all done and done. And this week, we've got actually an interesting little topic that came out of the blue, but it'd be fun to
This
discuss.
was Steve's idea.
It was Steve's idea, actually. This time it was. We're going with protagonists and antagonists, but we're not going to get into what you can learn in a basic high school writing class. No, we're going to talk about what we love about
Our favorite
villains and heroes. Well, specifically protagonists, antagonists. They don't have to be the good guys.
There's one instance I can specifically point out. Borderlands, the pre-sequel.
I have one as well, but we'll get into that. And then we're going to talk about why we love them. Why are they such great?
And what makes them good.
What makes them good.
them bad.
That's something that I actually am really curious about, because I'm going to bring up later some examples of classic heroes and villains that I don't know why we consider them heroes and villains.
I have one
antagonist and protagonist.
I have one specific hero that I want to tear apart.
Oh boy. Let's start on that. Who are we
You want to start on this?
I want to start on this. Who are we tearing apart?
We're tearing apart Superman.
Yes!
Because fuck that guy.
Everyone acknowledges Superman is broken.
Well, it's not just that he's broken.
To a point,
he's
broken.
not a good hero.
He's
Or
legitimately
never a
OP.
good, fantastic.
No, it's not that he's OP. He's too nice.
It's,
There's so much... Now, granted, there is so much right with Superman because he is one of the ones that started this whole superhero phenomenon. He's the only one that logistically makes sense. In a real-world scenario, he is the only one that logistically makes sense.
well, logistically, as in he's a alien.
I was going to say, they've broken down the physics.
Example, he's an alien, so one. Billionaire builds suit of a giant armor suit Iron Man. Doesn't really make sense because there's people out there right now that could do it, but they haven't.
But they're not smart enough like Stark was.
Batman. Same scenario. I don't see any Caped Crusaders fighting crime.
Funny enough, there are actual... they don't call themselves Caped Crusaders. I don't know what they call themselves. There are actual superhero guilds you can find in major cities in the U.S.
Really?
I don't know if it's worldwide, but I do know it's in the U.S.
Yeah, actually, you've seen Kick-Ass 2, right?
Yes.
Where he forms all the superheroes, and the first thing they do is
No,
they
I've
go out
seen
and
the first one. I haven't seen the second one.
Oh, so there's in the second one he forms a superhero guild, and one of the first things they do is like a superhero power is they go out and they give water to people to keep them from getting dehydrated. That's a real thing. People do that.
Yeah, there are actual superheroes. Some of them actually do fight crime. Like they'll just kind of run around.
Kind of like your neighborhood watch people.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
But they dress up and all that. It's funny.
But the Hulk doesn't legitimately make sense.
Well, the Hulk was back when it was radiation does everything.
Well, because Superman alien comes down, obtains superpowers from a different sun. That makes sense.
Well, he doesn't obtain superpowers. The powers are naturally within him. It's just because of
the yellow sun compared to, what was they, a red giant?
Well, I thought it was more that I know he can fly because the gravity is much lower on Earth.
Yes.
It's not that he's
That
actually
makes
flying.
sense.
He's weightless, essentially, on Earth.
Yeah.
And that's where he also has his super strength.
But that's where it's all of that.
That makes about as much sense as a mutated spider biting you.
That follows in the same category as the Hulk. Gamma radiation turn you into a big green monster.
It makes about as much sense as Superman.
I mean, back then they thought radiation could do it.
Yeah,
that was also back when we had movies about the giant ants.
No, the big reason why Superman became such a popular character is really just the time period that he came out in. Just like Captain America shined because he came out during World War II, or was it World War I?
Two.
It was two?
It was two, yeah. The Nazis.
Because the Red Skull was Nazis, Hydra.
Yeah, I didn't know if they had something before that. But yeah, he came out at just the right time. Superman had the same thing. That's why, same for Batman. I mean, they're all iconic because they came out at the time where people were wanting to find that.
Well, Batman actually came out, he was part of Detective Comics. The original Batman wasn't anything like the current Batman.
Oh, no, not at all.
I mean, he was more almost like a bad cop in the original Detective Comics version, I want to say. I don't think he was all Caped Crusadery to that extent yet.
Oh, no, not at all. But he was the hero people needed.
Sure.
If we're going to make that quote.
the one.
And that's
in
the
this
only
town.
reason why Superman became as big and popular as he is. He came out at the right time. People needed a hero to kind of look towards, or especially the youth needed some kind of role model hero to look for or to look towards. And Superman just was the epitome of goodness.
I guess
That's it. That's otherwise he's not a great hero.
He's not a great hero. He's too nice. Skyler's right. He is way too OP. I mean, watching Man of Steel, it felt like watching Injustice. Just watching them knock the ever-living crap out of each other.
I'm glad you mentioned Injustice. That is the best example of Superman as an actual decent hero.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, except that he's not a hero. He's a villain in that. He's the antagonist.
Depending on...
No, he's flat out the antagonist.
Okay, so Injustice, it does follow...
Oh, yeah.
It follow? What do you... I don't know. Your karate chop.
I get what you're saying, but you probably should say it.
There is a comic series where Superman does basically go through that. He becomes the villain, which is where they got the idea from.
They released an Injustice comic line to go along with the games.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's actually a separated deal, but they have comics that kind of explain some of the backstory. Like, I don't know if you knew this, Injustice actually started because the Joker tricked Superman into taking Lois Lane out into space, and it killed her.
Yes.
But he was under, I think it was mind control or some kind of drug or something.
Joker
it was like
poison.
Was it the Joker poison or was it the Scarecrow poison?
No, it was the Joker.
It was the Joker.
Because the Joker was actually in prison, and that's why they thought Superman had just gone crazy and killed Lois Lane. And
yeah.
And that's
then
basically where...
He flew into the prison, busted through the wall, grabbed the Joker, and killed him.
I do remember watching it because I did play the intro. I did play the first several levels of Injustice.
Yeah, the intro doesn't show. I don't think it actually showed him taking Lois up there. That was all in the comics prior, but it does show him busting through the prison wall.
The first thing you see is him busting through the wall, going after Joker.
Yeah, because it starts with like an interrogation scene with Batman and Joker. I think.
Yeah.
That was the best. That was at that point. I was like, okay, we have a character finally. It took 60 fucking years, but we finally have a character. It's like awesome. Now that being said, I don't know every Superman story that's been out. I'm sure there are good ones. I'm sure the one with Apocalypse or Darkseid.
6.
Whoever kills him.
6 different Superman universes, correct me. But I think there's only a total of 6.
I don't know.
Separate Superman universes.
I know in one of them he went around the Earth backwards to go back in time.
That was Superman 2, wasn't it?
That was Superman 2.
Isn't that Superman 2?
I mean, that's why I say that he's the most overpowered superhero, is because he never loses. And that's something that I think is interesting, is a good hero needs to lose.
Batman lost. Batman's lost countless times.
Well, I would consider Batman a good
phenomenal hero. Anti-hero.
Well, that's why I say protagonist. It's a hard line to draw between good and bad some cases.
Batman is an excellent anti-hero because he's got the perfect villain. He's got the perfect antagonist. I don't care what anybody says. I will argue this to a fault.
What, the Joker?
The Joker is the perfect antagonist to Batman.
Well, what I think Joker is actually the star of the Batman universe. Joker is a much better villain than Batman is a hero.
I'd agree.
And I think Batman's a decent enough protagonist.
He's
but
an awesome protagonist. But
the Joker is what makes him.
Yes.
And I think that's actually as important as being... This is what I don't like about Superman, bringing it a little back to him.
He's got Lex Luthor.
Well, Superman doesn't pair well with any real villains. Like, he has his list of villains, and Lex Luthor comes as close, but you don't have a good...
He's just a nemesis.
Yeah,
you don't... a true villain.
You don't have a good pairing between him and anyone else. So, and he himself is not a good enough character on his own to stand up.
Yeah. Well, I'd say he kind of has a close villain, like an arch nemesis with Apocalypse, but even then Apocalypse, just like him, is kind of bullshit.
Was it Apocalypse or is it Darkseid?
Doomsday.
Doomsday. I'm sorry, he's right. Doomsday is who I'm
Apocalypse is X-Men. We're going to get to X-Men.
You're right. I'm mixing up stuff, but
because X-Men's all over the place.
Doomsday is the closest thing he has to a true, like...
I disagree.
But even then, neither one of those characters, Superman and Doomsday, are not great characters on their own. They only go well together because they can actually fight each other.
It's always been Superman and Lex Luthor.
Oh, no, I agree. But we're not...
It's always been... Superman is to Lex Luthor as Batman is to Joker.
Right, but in terms of someone who actually can fight Superman realistically...
Lex Luthor.
Well...
Lex Luthor has always whooped his ass more than any other supervillain.
That's because he's been with Lex Luthor longer than any other supervillain. The The only villain to have ever killed Superman was Doomsday,
That's
or
right.
Darkseid, or Brainiac, or
No,
one
it
of
is
those.
Doomsday.
I don't know. They
Doomsday.
all sound the same.
That's right. There was that one movie that the animated movie they did where Superman died.
Well, there was a whole comic line where he actually died. They were able to bring him back through some mystical bullshit, but yeah, he died and was dead for a series.
Well,
That's-
because on his planet, he's so dead on his planet that when he gets here, he's basically just always alive.
What?
He's being a smartass.
It didn't make sense though.
Yeah, it,
It makes about as much sense as his gravity bullshit.
Okay, so moving on.
But
Superman.
anyway, my whole point with that was the Batman and Joker are perfect companions. They're good at
Sure.
They're great going against each other because the Joker is the exact opposite of Batman, but still shares some very important qualities
Sure.
between the two.
Well, I think what makes the Joker such a great villain is he's one of very few villains we've ever seen who truly has no motivation behind what he does.
That's not true.
Well, he
That's
does what he
not
does.
true. It depends. Plus, you also have to look at which Joker we're talking about.
Well, it doesn't matter which Joker. All the Jokers have one goal, and it's to, well, I guess it's one of two goals. It's either to prove that that he can break the bat, or prove that everyone's just as crazy as he is.
Right, but I mean, when you look at it, most villains have the whole I want the money, I want to accomplish some goal, I want power. There's something that they're going towards. For the Joker, all it is simple anarchy. If he can create anarchy, he wins. That's all he has to do. He's not trying to get money, he's not trying to walk away, he's not even trying to survive it half the time. He's just trying to prove that he can do what he's doing.
Well, the whole point is to prove that, well, like I said, either way, he's either trying to prove that he can break Batman, such as when he kidnapped and killed, and I use air quotes, killed Jason Todd. That was the whole point of that. He didn't care about killing Jason Todd. There's no reason for him to kill him, except that he wanted to break down Batman.
Which, evidently, he never did kill Jason Todd.
Well, no, he ended up becoming Red Hood, and there's
Jason
a
Hood,
long storyline.
Jason Todd ended up going from Robin to the Red Hood, and then became the Joker once the original Joker died. Jason Todd
I thought it was flipped. I thought he became the Joker, and then Batman snapped him out of it, and he became Red Hood after that. I thought that's how it went. I know that's how it went in Arkham Knight. I don't know how close it was to the whole storyline.
Arkham Knight was very, very close to the story.
Except for Arkham Knight himself.
Jason Todd, at one point, his whole goal when he was the Joker... No, it was very, very weird because it was that transitional phase between Red Hood and Joker. His whole point was to kill the Joker. He had this big crusade about... I don't remember how it was.
But it's more than any one person could ever fully understand.
But just...
Yeah, there's... God, comic books.
The only people
I don't know enough about him to really dive into it like that, but they're so insane.
I'm sure everyone listening, or maybe not everyone, but there's people listening who are just screaming at us about the stuff we're getting wrong.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I think right behind Batman, I'd put Oliver Queen. Not because of... Oliver Queen has the realistic training that he has with archery, the survival skills that he knows, the edge that he has, and the willingness to do what needs to be done. Puts him right behind it.
To be specific, you're talking Arrow, the
Oliver
CW
Queen. Yes.
TV show, because he's actually a very different Oliver Queen in the
Yes.
comics.
I was gonna say I don't actually know who you're talking about because I haven't watched the show Arrow, so
He's got a lot of real world survival training.
Yeah, and in the Green Arrow, I don't know his comics very well, but I know a little bit about his backstory. And I do know he does have that same training. He's very skilled, but he has a supernatural level accuracy, similar to Hawkeye in Marvel.
Yes.
Where it's not like he's trained so long with a bow that he's just gotten good. He's just naturally great with the bow.
That is Justice League Green Arrow. When they did Justice League Unlimited.
I don't know.
The animated one that was on Cartoon Network back in the day.
No, I'm definitely thinking a comic. I don't know which comic.
That
but
Green Arrow, the one that had the fancy Robin Hood hat. They got that.
Oh, I remember that guy.
He has the blonde goatee and beard thing
that
going.
was that Green Arrow has more of the Hawkeye ability than Arrow.
So see, for me, one thing, and this is why I love that version of him, is because he's a smartass. He's very cocky and just kind of a fun guy, kind of like Robin Hood, like you'd expect Robin Hood to be.
Sure.
My favorite interaction, I don't know if this was made up, I just saw it online, a picture of it, was between him and Harley Quinn. And he goes, it was something like, meet me at the Arrow Cave. She goes, well, wouldn't it make more sense to call it the Quiver? He goes, Yeah, I guess it would. I thought that was just a perfect interaction
thing.
I don't know if it's an online thing or if it's actually in a comic series. It looked like it was from a comic strip, but I don't know what it would be from.
Well, see, that would be why I'd say like the current instantiation of Daredevil with the Daredevil going over to Marvel with their Netflix series. I would say he's very similar because it's not like he really has a supernatural skill. Yes, he has very heightened senses aside from his sight, obviously.
He does have a
That's
supernatural
actually
ability.
At least in the Marvel series, they gave him a supernatural ability.
He sees vibrations. He can sense and see vibrations.
I thought it was like a supernatural level of hearing for the most part.
No,
He's
well,
blind. He is fully blind,
Right.
but he can see and sense vibrations.
how they explained it in the Marvel Netflix series anyway
He
is
sees a world on fire. That one.
well, yeah, there's that, but it's how he's able to do that is, he was in a car accident, was left in a chemical spill,
Right.
and so that chemical spill, it blinded him, but it's also what heightened his other senses beyond natural ability, and then he was able to to get a hold of his new abilities with stick.
Right.
And
But the
that
rest of it
training.
is he just trained. Like that's it. All of his
That's how he learned to control it. essentially.
aside from his supernatural sense, everything else with him is just he trained. He just trained constantly at fighting. So that's why I'd say similar to Arrow, I think he's such a good hero in the sense that he's not necessarily has superpowers. He just trained constantly to be able to fight these people.
Until I take away his stick. Then what?
He
he's a
punches the
hand-to-hand.
shit out of people.
He's a
Yeah.
full-blown CQC motherfucker. And
So
it's awesome.
we're completely disregarding Ben Affleck.
Oh
as
yeah,
Daredevil.
no, not that
Ben
Daredevil.
Affleck.
He played Daredevil? No,
He's talking about the terrible movie, right? The really bad Daredevil movie
Yes,
from way
with,
back when.
they made a movie about.
With Jennifer Garner.
Yes. You never saw it? It made no sense. They tried to do like the whole
He's
memento
being a
thing.
smart ass.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea. I've never heard of that or Elektra. I mean, Jennifer Gardner's movie. Such shit.
It was so bad. But yeah, it's like, and in the Netflix series, you see he gets his ass handed to him constantly because he's still learning how to be a hero. And you see just regular people beat the shit out of him, and then he trains more to figure out how to beat them the next time.
Yeah, actually, that's what made that first season. Did you ever watch it?
Yes, I'm in the process of watching it now.
Oh, we're not gonna
Have you
spoil
seen the
anything
first
then.
season?
No, I'm halfway through.
Okay, then I'm not going to spoil too much. But yeah, that build up through the first season of him getting beat up by just typical
Everybody.
muggers.
Yeah.
It's like beautiful, especially given where it leads into as it progresses. I think that's one of the best origin stories that they've shown on TV or Netflix or
Well,
any
it's
of
just,
those.
it makes it feel more real when you actually see them lose. You don't expect to see the hero lose.
Yeah, I'm nodding my head. I got to remember.
I mean, that's what breaking
Amateur
off
hour.
of. Do we want to stay on the comics tangent for a while? Or do we want to break
you
off
know
and
what?
talk about a few others?
No, I think we covered. I mean, we'll bring up comics throughout the
All right.
thing, but we can
Well,
move on.
Fantastic antagonist I want to jump into.
Well, I was going to mention, kind of segueing off of the heroes losing. I think that's what makes the heroes in Walking Dead and Game of Thrones and the antagonists so compelling, is that they never win. It's never a series of we're going to win this.
Game of Thrones and Walking Dead is a completely different monster.
Yeah, I wouldn't compare those two. I see what you're saying about Game of Thrones. I don't know that it applies to Walking
Maybe
Dead.
not Walking Dead as much. It's hard to separate those two when you talk about stuff, but
Because when you're also looking at The Walking Dead, you've got your protagonists, the people who are alive, and your antagonists are the zombies.
well, no, the antagonists are other people.
Yeah, the zombies are more of a environmental hazard, which is what they do now with zombie stuff. It's usually your protagonists are our group of survivors, and then you've got other survivors are your antagonists, like the governor and.
I'm not caught up on Walking Dead at all. The last thing I saw was the CDC blew up.
Oh,
So
that's like season one?
Yeah, that's season
Well,
one.
they had a little bit of antagonist with the researcher guy there. He didn't want them in, and then he didn't want them to leave.
Well, okay, so from your perspective, yeah, it does seem like it's survivors versus zombies because that's what that first season was built up as. But very quickly, I think even in season 2, it quickly changes from.
Because they end up on the farm. I have seen the first couple episodes of season 2. They end up on the farm.
Yeah, and that's actually where it gets a little hazy. And this is why I don't like using hero and villain. I like protagonist, antagonist, because you've got some of the people at the farm that I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's like you can tell that they have good intentions for their own, but it has very negative impacts on the group of survivors that we're following.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess I don't want to talk too much about Walking Dead, but Game
Fair
of
enough.
Thrones.
But Game
I
of
do want
Thrones,
to talk
I'd say,
about.
does have some better ones. I mean, keeping away from the recent season stuff because
Yeah, I
it's
know
such a
you still
spoiler.
haven't
Yeah,
seen
please
it.
keep in mind I've only seen about halfway. I'm 2 episodes before the Red Wedding.
Okay, but you've seen all of season 1.
Yes.
So I'm going to keep it mostly to season 1 because I feel
Okay.
that's what most people have seen.
Yeah.
That, I think, is what makes the Starks such lovable characters. Why everyone loves the Starks is because there's... I mean, you can say, like, Superman, they're too nice, but they're not really.
Well,
I mean, they lose. They're the first big loss.
to correct you real quick, nobody liked Sansa in that first season.
Yeah, nobody did.
Okay, I'll
was a
agree with
whiny
you on
little
that.
bitch.
That was
Sansa
horrible.
was a whiny little bitch.
She was whiny a little
All the
bit.
others, yeah,
But
great.
as far
perfect,
as Ned,
but-
like, that's why Ned has such this high level of respect among fans is he lost. He tried to be the good guy. He did the honorable thing.
Can we
and
bring him back?
He got his head chopped off.
I thought they were. Well, I'm not gonna get.
They
into
kind of bring him back
I
in some of the
don't-
new stuff,
I
but
don't
we
wa-
don't want to talk spoilers.
Yeah, I don't want to talk.
They have like flashbacky things. But
It's all in this latest season. Oh my god, did you see the finale?
yes.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later.
That'll be
after
post
the show.
podcast. It was
Oh,
so good.
by the way, I was right. High five.
You were right.
Yeah. Eyes.
Spoilers!
Oh,
Shut it!
I'll take it.
You don't know. Don't worry.
Shut
You
it!
have no clue whose eyes we're talking about.
Jon Snow.
No.
No,
No.
no,
No.
Okay.
not at all. No, there's so much that even if I were to tell you right now, it wouldn't make sense to you, just because there's so much that happens between season 1 and where we're at there. It wouldn't make sense.
I have
You'd
some catching up to do.
Yeah,
I'm gonna power binge here shortly.
but I don't want to spoil it for listeners who may not
Yeah.
have seen it yet.
Yeah, okay, so I mean, I loved Ned Stark. I thought he was a great protagonist.
But I think that's wise because if he'd lived past that, you'd have seen that fall of that hero.
Well, Game of Thrones is an interesting show in that you don't really have protagonists and antagonists. You don't have one dedicated group that these are the people that you're supposed to like and follow. And
But it makes people choose.
Except
In-
Daenerys. You
No.
always love her.
Well, not
for
at
a
first.
time, yeah. For
I
a
loved her
time,
at
did not
first.
know. And
Yeah,
even still,
there's-
there's moments where you're kind of like, okay, she's talking about just like murdering everyone.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's talking full-blown genocide in certain situations. So it's like, okay,
Let's back down a
hold
little
on.
bit.
But there
But,
are characters, obviously, that everyone loves that are just generally loved, like Tyrion. It's everyone's favorite.
I love him.
They'd
But-
have to do a lot to make Tyrion go bad for me.
But you couldn't call him a protagonist. It's
or-
not. The story doesn't follow Tyrion. It follows all of these different stories. So it's more of a culmination of everything.
I guess-
it's a little fuzzier on.
But I feel
who's-
like because of that, you get to pick your protagonist. Like you get to pick who it is you support.
I can give you that. Yeah.
Because I'd say starting out, Jamie Lannister is what I'm going to mention. In the first season, he is by far the closest thing to a villain. Like one of the
Well,
top
him and
villains.
Cersei, yeah.
Right. I mean, they're one of the top villains of that series. But
Joffrey.
as he changes and grows more as a character, he's to the point where I want him to be at the end of the series now. I want him to be one of the few that makes it.
Well, it's a little. I guess it is getting a little. It's gotten fuzzy over the seasons, but it is generally a story of Starks and Lannisters.
And
You've got-
Targaryens working their way over.
Well, you've
to
got
screw everyone
Targaryens, but
up.
that's almost a separate series right now. That's why I say it's hard
Have
to.
they even crossed the ocean yet? Or
I'm not going to get into it.
Not going to get into it.
You don't want me spoiling it.
The season
Don't worry.
finale was good, though.
Season finale was fantastic. So out of Game of Thrones, just because I'm afraid of saying something.
Yeah, we're going to say something.
Okay, I want to jump back into the superheroes and X-Men.
Okay.
X-Men has the largest number of hero, villains, protagonists, antagonists across the board.
Well,
So I'm
don't
only
they
gonna-
constantly switch sides, most of them?
No.
There are some that do.
There are some that do. Deadpool is one of them. Deadpool,
Okay.
Well, Deadpool doesn't align. He's not a good. He doesn't align
for
with
a
anything.
period of time, Deadpool was a part of the X-Men. Then he jumped back over to the Brotherhood.
No, he wasn't part of the X-Men because he killed, and he wouldn't stop killing, so he was part of the X-Force.
No, he was part of Xavier's X-Men. And because he killed, they kicked him out.
Hmm.
And then he kept killing. And then he went over to the Brotherhood, and Magneto got sick of it. And Magneto said, fuck off.
See, I don't know any of. I don't know a lot about. I hardly
I've
know
actually
anything
had
about
to look
X-Men.
into this recently because I keep getting into fights with people about Deadpool. Because they all say, No, he was never part of the X-Men, and I had to prove them wrong. He started... Xavier went after him.
Do I need to look this up?
No.
That was a hard no. That was a quick
To
hard
be fair,
no.
though, the amount of time it would take us to find stuff out regarding comic lore would
Yeah,
probably
no, it wouldn't.
It would take longer than the podcast.
I'd be sitting here
But
silent for 10 minutes.
Deadpool is one of those. He's right there in the middle. He's not a protagonist. He's not an antagonist.
Well, he is a protagonist. He's not a hero or a villain. That's why I don't like hero and villain.
Okay.
He is a protagonist, though.
He has at certain
At
times...
least in his comic line.
But there are certain times where he is the antagonist.
Right, in other comic lines
Yes.
that he's a part of.
But I would put him more in the smack dab middle. He leans on both sides.
Well, remember, protagonist, antagonist is not good and bad. A protagonist isn't always a good guy. Sometimes it's a bad guy. But
it's who you support in the story.
It's the I keep wanting to call it a hero. It's hard to justify it otherwise, but it's the main character of the story, the one that you're following, versus who is his opposition.
Sure.
His or her opposition. Or it, in some cases.
Xavier and Magneto, prime examples of hero, villain, protagonist, antagonist.
Yeah, although, doesn't Magneto have his own line?
Magneto has the Brotherhood of Mutants.
Doesn't he have a comic line?
Yes.
Or is that the comic line?
No, he has his own comic line.
Oh, okay. I didn't... Like I said, I don't know much about X-Men.
Yeah, it's weird because
but-
X-Men is really... Magneto's not really a... I mean, he's a villain, but he's trying to be a hero. He's just different than the X-Men.
And that's why I have a hard time saying hero-villain, is because it's all about perspective. The Joker thinks he's a good guy. He thinks he's doing what he should be doing. People are too boring. He needs to liven up the world.
Well, that's...
But he's doing terrible things. But in his psychotic mind, he's the hero.
Well,
Yeah.
like as a non-comic version, Walter White was the hero of Breaking Bad.
Exactly. The whole time I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this.
He was doing
till
he was doing the wrong things for the right reasons.
He was doing the wrong things. You can debate which points he
He
was doing
started
them for
doing
the,
the
right
wrong
reasons.
things for the right reasons.
Well, he started, but you could argue that it's still not a right reason.
I mean-
that there are other ways of getting money together. That what
And
he
also-
did was extreme.
There's a lot of stuff breaking down. Did he really do it for his family or did he do it for himself?
Was he doing it to survive? Yeah, But at the end of the day, he's the protagonist, whether he's a hero or a villain in your eyes. He was that
also-
protagonist.
He's also Zordon now.
What?
Bryan Cranston is now the voice of Zordon in the new Power Rangers movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I wish I could make that up.
I haven't kept that. Oh, I
Please-
did remember hearing he was casted.
Wait,
I just
wait.
didn't know his
Please
role.
tell me that he's going to be the Crystal Blue Power Ranger.
No, he's not going to be.
He's Zordon. He's the
Yeah, I was
big.
going to say Zordon's not a Power Ranger.
He's the big floating head.
So clearly, you don't know Power Rangers.
I don't know Power Rangers.
It's
He's
all right.
the
I don't
big
either.
Floating head who oversees and is.
Krang? Is he Krang?
Okay, so back off of X-Men.
But
Oh,
what were we talking about?
What?
Video games. We're gonna jump into them now. Handsome Jack. I want to start with him.
Okay.
I put him at the top.
Of one of your favorites.
He's such a great antagonist.
He's a protagonist and antagonist. He is.
Yeah, it depends on which game you're
He is
talking.
the
Fair enough.
perfect balance at the top. Because even in Borderlands 2, if you look at it from his side, he is the hero.
Well, yeah,
No.
that's the point of hero. That's why I don't like hero and villain. That's what I was saying before.
Yeah, it's at the beginning of Borderlands 2, he is. Well, because this is more of a protagonist, antagonist / hero villain. That's where this whole thing is going.
Well, I think he makes for a terrible protagonist just because of how they handled him in
What?
pre-sequel. But he is a fantastic antagonist.
He's a
in
I wouldn't say he was the
fantastic
protagonist of pre-sequel though.
He's one of.
He's one of the protagonists.
He's the playable character. I mean, he's one of the
I would
protagonists
say
of
the
the
way that
story.
they handled it is because you know he eventually becomes the antagonist. He's kind of more like a delve into an antagonist.
No, he is.
No, he's a
protagonist.
villain. You're playing as a villain, but he is the protagonist of the
He
story.
in the pre-sequel, he is the protagonist. He's one of them.
You
He
play
is-
as him. He's one of the main characters.
No, he's not.
You play as.
No, you can
Oh,
play,
you play
as the
as his
doppelganger,
doppelganger,
the guy who
that's right.
wants to be like him.
That's right. I was thinking it was
But
him.
even then, he's one of the big NPCs that you are
Okay,
helping.
fair
him.
enough. I'll give you that.
He is the protagonist.
I
Like
still
that it's
love
devolved
the
into
pre-sequel, though.
defining a protagonist antagonist.
He is the
Again,
biggest.
That's just basic high school writing class.
He's the biggest protagonist of the pre-sequel. But watching that escalation from that to what he is in 2, and in 2, he is a phenomenal antagonist, a phenomenal villain.
No, I
Yeah.
agree.
And you could tell when he really and truly snapped. Spoilers, by the way. When Angel died, you could tell that's when it really just snapped.
Oh yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
just like, fuck all of you. You're done.
Well, he's a perfect example. He's not just kind of like what Skyler was saying before. He's not in it just for the money, although he likes the money.
He does like the money.
He ends up with a very personal goal.
in the
this.
end, it's just I'm going to destroy you.
I'm killing.
Well, yeah, he wants to end up just killing all of you, but it turns from he's just a Hyperion executive who's taking over Pandora to, all right, I have a personal reason to want to kill you.
Yeah.
He evolves as the story is told. I like.
That
Well,
was-
and that's
To
like
me,
have you
that makes
played-
for a great.
Have you played
antagonist.
Tales from the Borderlands?
yes.
That like rendition of Jack that follows you into that game too was interesting because you talk about how like pre-sequel is his rise, Borderlands 2 he's the big villain. I feel like pre-sequel is that almost his kind of descent where
I see it as a comeback.
you see it as a comeback.
I see Tales from the Borderlands as a comeback.
Well, you're-
Spoilers, by the way.
You remember the ending of that though, right?
Yes.
He's gone,
He is gone.
like flat out gone. I kind of agree with Skylar. That's more of his downward spiral that he's trying to save his sinking ship, but just
Right. I
can't.
mean, he's had to accept that now he's the villain and he's trying to weasel his way out of it.
Yeah.
But that's also why I think he's such a great character is he's such a realistic villain. It's even once he realizes he went off the deep end to the point where he lost and died and then comes back as a cyber ghost. Spoilers once again. It's like now that he's realized he lost and he was the villain, he tries to weasel his way out of it. It's what everyone would do when you realize you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Booker catch.
Oh, I turned to you. I thought you were making a motion. You wanted to say something.
Booker
Was
catch.
that your way? Is that your way of segueing? You're throwing the segue at us?
Booker catch.
So BioShock. That's an interesting one.
Booker catch.
So
In the first
that's one that kind of.
Well, no, we're going.
Tries to
we're starting
trick
with
you.
Infinite first.
Okay.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, we're starting.
Oh,
with
I'll start
Infinite.
with one.
All right, we'll go with one and we'll go in order.
I was just starting with one. That's one that it doesn't tell you right off who is the antagonist. You have to figure that out as you go along.
Well, it gives you
But-
an antagonist pretty early on.
Well, it gives you a antagonist, but you don't. The prime antagonist you
really
think
don't-
is actually your friend. You think
Right.
is one of your helpers. But spoilers for BioShock 1, by the way.
10 years later.
Just assume spoilers at this point.
Would you kindly go play it already?
There you go.
There.
But yeah, I honestly did not see the ending to BioShock 1 at all until they revealed it.
What's weird is in the game, I don't think they had. I think they had one great antagonist in that game, and that was Cohen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cohen.
Cohen?
He was a fantastic antagonist.
Sander Cohen was a fantastic one.
The
Yeah.
rest weren't.
Really?
They weren't.
Atlas and
I thought Ryan and Frank Fontaine were great antagonists.
Well, you say that knowing their backstory, knowing things that weren't introduced in the game.
they were. You just had to find them in the side files or in the audio logs.
No.
A lot of the stuff in the audio logs, I mean, before you realize who Frank Fontaine is, because when you start first hearing about him, that is the quintessential, like, I am glad this guy is gone by the time that you get to Rapture. And then you realize he's not.
Well, yeah, they from the get-go set him up as he's a fucker. No one likes him. He's terrible. And you're happy he's gone.
But I also thought Ryan was a great villain.
No. How so? I don't think so. Sorry.
I don't think so either.
I shouldn't put down your opinion. But
Well, I mean, right at the very end of the very first level of the game, you have where it's Ryan contacts you directly and is like, you're not allowed in my city, and then he sends everything to come kill you. Right off the bat, he's the guy who basically is sending people to come get you.
But how does that make him a good villain? Or a good antagonist? He's very clearly the antagonist, but how does that make him a good one?
yeah.
Well, because he's the one who, to steal a quote from the game, every time you make it 10 yards down, Ryan goes and moves the field goal to the other end of the football field.
Well, I don't think that makes him a good antagonist. I think that's just the role of an antagonist is to put obstacles between you and your goal.
Sander Cohen is
Sander Cohen.
the best one out of that.
He is the best one, but I still think that Frank Fontaine and Andrew Ryan were great ones because when I got to them, I wanted to fight them. It wasn't just I got to the boss, it was I have finally gotten to you.
See, Andrew Ryan, I didn't have that feeling. It's like as soon as I got to him, I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to kill you now. That's whatever.
I
Like,
mean,
he
the
was a
scene was
nuisance.
definitely a
He was-
twist, but
Obviously, the things that he had done along the way, there's a great backstory to him, but him as a character, as represented in the game,
maybe
was not great.
I got all the audio logs like my first playthrough, except for 1 or 2. So
Oh, yeah.
to me, my understanding of Ryan is all that backstory.
Oh, I got the. Sorry, I just had a small stroke there. I think I got all of the audio logs as well when I played through. One of the times I played through, but even with those audio logs, he didn't stand out as a great character.
Really?
Yeah.
He was more of a noticeable character at the end of Burial at Sea, to me.
Go on.
Actually, yes. Please do go on.
Yeah,
I'm
all
down
right.
with-
Because the very end of Burial at Sea, you figure out he's still pulling the strings there.
Well, yeah, that's Rapture.
Yeah, that was.
It was Rapture, but I felt like he was more of a better antagonist at the end of Burial at Sea
Well,
than even into the first one.
Burial at Sea actually takes place just prior to 1.
The day before the fall of Rapture.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was the day before. So actually quite prior to 1. I think it was a decent setup for him, but I still don't think he was a great antagonist in that.
I do agree with you though that Sander Cohen is still by far the best antagonist in the game. Because right off the bat, you know he's the bad guy. He's out to get you.
Well, not really. I would say that's why I like him more as an antagonist, is the entire time you're not really sure. With Cohen,
Well, yeah, I kind of agree with you. You don't know quite the level of threat that he's going to be. You don't know is he really out to get you or is he just fucking with you?
right? Because I mean, the first time that you actually come face to face with him, you can just not kill him, and he'll let you leave.
Well, to me, I like that. I thought that made him a great antagonist. He was an antagonist he had a purpose. He had a goal in mind. You just weren't part of that goal. He set up all these problems between you, so he played that antagonist role. He set up obstacles between you and your goal, but he had his own motives. And you just didn't fit his motives, so he's like, all right, screw you. I'm done. I don't need you. I think that's what made him great.
At least in the
Myself.
first BioShock. In Burial at Sea, he was definitely much more of a direct antagonist.
Was he?
He was in Burial at Sea.
Yeah, he's the one who electrocutes
yeah.
you and then throws you into the dead part of Rapture,
That's right, I remember. That's just before you get the ice power.
Yes.
which that so should have been in the first BioShock. That was cool.
But if you want to move on, I think BioShock 2 was a very obvious protagonist-antagonist relationship.
I never
The
played
big
2.
sister. Oh, really?
I never played 2.
It's
Well, I'm going to spoil it for you.
Okay, that's fine.
The big sister is a little sister that just grew up,
Really?
essentially.
specifically it is since you play a Big Daddy into, it is your little sister.
Yeah, you play as Delta, who was one of the prototype Big Daddies prior to all the other Big Daddies. And Big Sister is your little sister back when you were a prototype. But she's gone and grown up, and you were unconscious for like 60 years or something.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of why I view Andrew Ryan as such a great villain, because I feel like even in 2, what he did resonated so heavily. Because his is the story of he wanted utopia, but he knew that utopia has its downsides, and his whole story was trying to cover up that downsides.
Okay, I can see that.
Because that's like
Well,
you
but-
have the whole like worker district in 2 that's not even mentioned in 1.
Well, but the whole downside was actually caused by Frank Fontaine. Well, by...
Well, that's Frank Fontaine exploited those, but Ryan was the kind of guy who basically was like, I'm going to create the upper class utopia for everyone, and then he just covered up all the lower class. He made it look like there was no lower class. Anything that was bad, he just got rid of, or just pushed aside and threw a nice little blanket over.
Yeah.
And that's why I like Andrew Ryan as such a great villain.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. I disagree highly, though.
Maybe.
But yeah, 2 was very basic. It was very clear cut. It didn't have the twists and turns like
1 or Infinite.
1 or Infinite. Yeah,
It was direct as the train that you rode the entire game on.
it's a pretty fun train though.
It was a fun train.
It's a fun train. On to Infinite, since I know
Booger
you know.
Catch!
Since I know you know Infinite.
Booger
That was a
Catch!
That actually-
great antagonist.
That was aside from that big twist to it. it was a very straightforward protagonist-antagonist relationship throughout.
Up until the very end.
Up until the very end when everything is made clear and it's like, oh, holy shit, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it when they can somehow make the protagonist also the antagonist in your story.
Where would you put the Lutesses?
They were,
I would say
they were
they
allies. They weren't protagonists.
No,
or
I would say they
antagonists.
were protagonists because when you really break down into the story and realize what happened, the Lutesses are the one who said that they were going to end all this alternate reality stuff, basically.
Well, they were the heroes. Yeah, they were on the side of heroes for sure.
But I would say they were protagonists because they're the ones who bring you to Columbia.
But
They're
not,
the reason you're in Columbia in the first place.
Heads or tails?
No, that's a fake choice.
I thought
That
you were
didn't
actually
matter.
flipping a coin. I was confused for a moment. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, the bird or the cage.
Yeah, it was a fake choice. I figured out how to do that one pretty early on.
The fake choice? Yeah. It doesn't matter, except that you got a cool little pendant depending on your choice.
That actually,
That was
I will
it.
say, was a nicer thing, at least with the bird one. It changes the pendant she wears for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
It was at least a visible change.
Yeah, they weren't
But, like-
weren't the protagonists of the story. They were
I would say they were the main.
What is-
I would say they were the actual protagonists, but
of BioShock Infinite?
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I mean,
that was Booker.
no. Booker's
Booker's the one you
DeWitt
play
is,
as. But I think they're the ones
that's
who
your protagonist.
are the driving force behind all of it.
What is the term? There's a term for that. It's not a protagonist. It's
Protagonist support.
no. There's a specific
I know.
label you give to characters. Like they're the
Screw it, they're the heroes.
they're the storytellers. Essentially, they present the story to you, the
narrator?
audience. No, not quite a
not narrator?
narrator.
I don't know.
I don't know the exact
Apparently,
word,
we
but
skipped this high school creative writing class.
I actually did very good in creative writing. I forgot half of it by now.
Yeah. But stay in school, kids.
Stay in school.
You'll
Use it
need
or lose-
every last bit.
use it or lose it. But yeah, they're not a. They're great characters. I love them as characters. I think they have a fantastic backstory that is properly presented in the game, whether you got all the audio logs or not. They have a great backstory built into the game. I thought they were fantastic, but I thought the true star of this was Booker and
Elizabeth.
and Comstock. I mean,
Yeah,
their
their
whole
relationship.
dynamic was just fantastic.
Okay.
I'm looking up.
Steve is currently on his phone doing something.
I'm looking up. You said you wanted to know what the name of it was for what the Lutesses were.
Yeah, it's a specific role.
That's what I'm looking up.
I don't know.
It's a trope, is what
Well,
it is.
staying on game characters,
Oh
one
no,
thing
I was
that-
gonna go into a game. Sorry, I wanted to go into a game because it's directly related to the Comstock DeWitt relationship.
okay?
Sure.
Infamous. In the very first Infamous, you play as
Yes.
Cole McGrath.
Okay.
The villain is Kessler. Turns out they're one and the same.
Yes, I remember that.
So this whole time, and Kessler is doing just despicable things. Like he kills your girlfriend. He sets off a bomb in the middle of. It's not New York, but it's fake New York.
Fake news. Yeah, because the second one was New Orleans.
But he's the one that sets off the bomb that gives you your powers, and he kills your girlfriend. And the whole thing is built up as he's this evil person, but he's actually you. And I can't remember the exact story, but
Isn't he him from the future?
he's him from the future. He's able to come back in time due to a given power way later on that lets him come back in time because there's this monster, the Beast, that's introduced in 2.
Two.
The one that's coming for New Marais.
Yeah. And he knows that this Beast in his timeline just destroys all of Earth, just eradicates everything, and there's no stopping it. And he pinpoints, okay, these are the moments where I had a choice, because the whole game's about choice. It was one of the
Right.
early examples of like the Mass Effect choice. You're either a good guy or a bad guy.
From 1 or from 2?
It was in both.
Choices. You
I
had
It was in
remember-
both.
Yeah, I remember-
Both?
Both?
In 2,
It
they
was in
did the
both.
thing where it changed your tattoos.
I went Northeastern.
Did 1 change the tattoos?
I don't think 1 changed the tattoos, but it changed how your character
No.
looked a little bit.
It was 2 that did the tattoos.
I know 2 completely changed because it was either your powers got more fire-based or more ice-based.
No, you got ice powers or you got fire powers. But that's actually a secondary choice because you also have the good and evil, where like he looks more corrupt as he gets more
That's
evil.
right, I do remember that.
But yeah, the whole first game sets up that Kessler went back in time to try and stop the Beast, and the only way to do this was to make sure that he was able to that he was powerful enough to stop it.
Well, wasn't the twist in 2 that the Beast wasn't a bad guy?
I actually don't remember.
I never finished.
The
2.
Beast was the supernatural force that was generated by like one of the big evil companies in it or something. It was something weird like that.
I forgot.
I don't remember
the
exactly.
twist was that the Beast himself wasn't a bad guy.
I don't remember exactly. Maybe.
I don't remember.
But there was a person inside the Beast. I remember that. Oh, it's starting to come back to me. Who the fuck was that? Sorry, I'm gonna.
I like how we went from
that.
comic books to TV shows to movies to video games, now to comic books in video games.
They're kind of. I mean, it wasn't based on a comic book.
Well, weren't all the cutscenes like comic based?
Yeah, it was supposed to be. What if a comic book was a video game, not a comic?
Sure.
But anyway, I think that's a really cool dynamic when you're able to make your protagonist also your antagonist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just not explain
That's
it.
a fantastic twist. I'm gonna have to point out the elephant in the room of good protagonists versus very good antagonists. Halo.
I disagree.
Yeah, I would say the main protagonist of Halo games.
He's not a great protagonist. The protagonist is you, essentially. Yeah, there's Master Chief, but he's not a great character.
To be fair, Master Chief is what's the bad guy? That's the bad guy. I kill the bad guy. He's the original Superman.
Yeah, he's very flat, like Superman. He's very one-dimensional. Here's his shtick. He sticks with it.
His shtick.
Shtick. That's a thing.
My reticle turns red when I pointed at that. I must shoot it.
They changed that in 5.
Well, they've made an attempt to change that in 4 and 5.
And I'd say that's what's
to
wrong
do so.
with 4 and 5 is they changed the character too much.
Yeah, they have failed to do so. They didn't do it very well. But they did try to give him more of a personality, more of a...
It's not.
Now, I will say this. If we want to talk Halo, I think the Didact was a good antagonist.
Yes. The Didactic Librarian were good protagonists and antagonists.
You know what I will say? I hate the Didact as an enemy, but I agree he did make for a great antagonist. I just don't like him.
Well, what I liked is, and I love when stories do this, I love when stories acknowledge that there's a world that happens outside of themselves. So the fact that you're on this planet and you just wake up this thing that's been sleeping there for thousands of years, and it doesn't care that you've had this war with the Covenant. It doesn't care about all this. It looks at you and it says, oh, you're human. I don't like humans. I'm going to kill you all. And it's just there. It's not because of anything you did prior to it. It doesn't care about the previous 3 games. It just already was there and already had a goal.
Actually, I thought it was a prophecy they had that you were the reclaimer that would wipe out the
about that
last
bullshit
of the
because I didn't
Forerunner.
like that.
Yeah,
that's right.
The bullshit that we don't like is what they decided to throw in there.
I forgot about that.
But like in Halo 5, you've got Locke and his team chasing John and his team. Master Chief and his team had become the antagonists, so to speak. If you're looking at it from Locke's point of view, John and them were the antagonists.
Yeah, 5 actually told two separate stories in the same game. Where playing as Locke and his team, John was the antagonist, but playing as John and his team, you had the Cortana was the antagonist.
Yeah, Cortana, the Covenant, and was it more of the...
I think Cortana was the overarching antagonist for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then there was that time where, Locke and Chief were going at it. It was horrible.
It wasn't very well told. If they had,
terrible
to be
story.
perfectly honest, if they had just stuck with one of the 2 teams, I think that game would have been a much better game. Flip-flopping between them gave you too much information, too many points.
That and the stories were so drastically different. It felt like when you were playing as Locke, it felt like I'm just an idiot.
It felt like
I don't
a Call
know
of
what's
Duty
going
campaign.
on. No, it's not that. That wasn't. That did, but that wasn't really my issue with it. My issue was just that as Locke, it's like, well, no, I know all this other information. No, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing. And when a game makes you do things you don't want to do, that's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable. Playing as Chief was much better because it's like, okay, I know the actual thing, what's going on here. Well, take Game of Thrones, for instance. Just briefly, I'm going to go back to this. So Jon Snow knows firsthand that the White Walkers are coming. He knows this.
But not everyone else does. But what I think Game of Thrones does well is they give you a lot of information and what a lot of different people know, but they also hide a lot of that.
Well, but you don't have a dead set... Sorry, let me say this one thing and I'll get to you, Steve.
Okay.
They don't have a dead set protagonist, whereas Halo 5, you have your dead set. Here are the people you're playing as.
Fair enough.
Steve.
What's a White Walker?
It was in the first season.
Magical snow zombie.
Yeah, it was in the first season.
No, they mentioned White Walkers. They never went anything into what the fuck they are.
I thought it was actually in the finale. It's the blue-faced guy, blue eyes. That was in the finale.
That was not in the finale of the first season.
The finale of the first season was Daenerys sitting on the ground naked with her dragons.
Yeah.
That was first season? I thought that was like
the very
third.
first episode, though, you actually see a White Walker. The little girl with blue eyes. Basically, the White Walkers are the army of the dead.
Yeah. If it's not first season, it's second season that they're introduced.
See that? Yeah, because the very end of the first season, because this is where they blew their budget, was Daenerys sitting there on the ground with the dragons, because that's where the majority of their budget went, was that last episode.
Okay.
And then after that, their budget went exponentially through the roof.
Well, because it was just good, and they've done good things with that budget.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I mean, did you see those pyrotechnics in the finale?
Shut up!
But,
Shut up!
But,
yeah, so Halo 5 tried to do that similar style, but it was just frustrating playing as Locke. If we had just played as Chief the whole time and had Locke as a separate antagonist who kept kind of getting in the way, that would have been okay. I actually would have enjoyed that.
See, this is something interesting because this is where I say being able to pick your protagonist and have your protagonist, I think, makes for the best because it's one that you personally decide. That's why I think RPGs have always consistently been seen to have the best protagonists. Maybe not always the best antagonists, but people generally agree RPG characters are almost always the best protagonists.
Actually, for that exact same reason, I'd say they're the worst protagonists.
Yes.
They're not actual characters. They're you. They're whatever you make it out to be. That's not the point of a protagonist.
Well, think of like Shepard in Mass Effect. Shepard was a fantastic protagonist.
Depending on which route you went.
Well,
no, he was a great which route you went.
Regardless of the route, he was a great protagonist, whether you were a hero or a villain. That's similar to Infamous. I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
Although Cole McGrath was not a great protagonist, but yeah, it was the same idea.
But I mean, I always feel like that makes for better protagonists because they're the protagonists that you would choose.
Depending on the RPG. Sorry, Fred.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I thought you were referring to something like Elder Scrolls where you build your own character. It's like that's not a great antagonist.
That's where my brain went.
That's more of a putting yourself in it.
That's more of a vehicle to put you in, I guess. Yeah,
the character itself
that.
is not great.
Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. I'll put that on Skyler's side. Those three because you are a set character that you make choices. That works. Dragon Age Origins? No. Dragon Age 2? Yes.
The game that I actually had in mind when I was thinking this was going to be KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic.
Does not work.
I think it does, though, because that's going back to you are the original antagonist, not the final antagonist.
Yeah,
but,
I'll give you that.
But it's also your character while there's... Well, go ahead.
Because you're lost. Knights of the Old Republic. You are actually...
Star Wars.
Not.
Yeah, I got that much.
You are actually the main character you play as is actually the big supervillain ahead of the Sith Empire, Darth Revan.
Oh, okay. What?
But because he had an accident, he had amnesia, got his head hit. He didn't remember shit.
I thought, was it Darth? What is his name?
Darth Revan.
Revan.
Yeah.
I thought Darth Revan had an established appearance.
Malik. Well, Darth Revan wore a mask.
Oh, he wears just nothing but a mask.
Yeah,
the whole
he
time?
wore a mask. But so
Maybe
basically, the game
then.
starts out where there's this big battle where the Jedi are trying to take out that Sith Lord, and in the middle of it, one of them has the idea that they steal the memory of that Lord. And then the game starts there where you have no memory of who you were.
Is that one that has a fully customizable character?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think it works because your character, while you're picking between light side and dark side, you start with a very simple motivation. Get off this planet. Which then becomes, get to the Jedi. Become a Jedi. Stop the Sith. But the entire time, you actually have motivation behind what you're doing.
I guess I can't argue. I don't know enough
Either
about
side.
it. From what I'm hearing, though, it sounds like a terrible protagonist.
Really?
Yeah,
It really kind of does.
It sounds terrible. It just sounds like you're just a character who... I know you're actually the big bad guy is the big spoiler, but it just sounds like you're a lost wanderer.
I felt like it was a good protagonist, but I don't know. It's hard to describe that game without describing the entire story because it's a very complex game.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it. I couldn't tell you for sure. So
Trying to think of more.
Great
stuff.
villain, though.
Revan was an villain.
No, Malik.
Which one was Malik? Was Malik the one?
Malik was the apprentice who took over in Revan's
Yeah,
absence.
Malik was
You didn't like Malik? I like Malik. He took your buddy and he turned him dark side.
yeah, I like the Daleks. Is this not what you're saying?
Exterminate.
Doctor
Exterminate.
Who. I like that. How have we not jumped into Doctor Who?
Yeah, well,
Or for that matter, Sherlock.
So okay.
Sherlock is an interesting one.
Starting with Doctor Who, I don't know if I'd say he's a good protagonist because Doctor Who suffers from the problem that I feel most superheroes do in a way, in that he never really loses. I will say that with a footnote, though. When he wins, and this is where I think his redeeming factor is, there are a lot of times that he wins, but it's very obviously that he lost in winning. For instance, someone had to die for him to win, and his whole thing is he never wants people to die.
You're right that he never loses, but I think that's more in poor storytelling than in his actual character. His character has down moments. Like he gets beaten, he gets not just physically but emotionally and mentally gets destroyed. And what makes him great is that he's able to find his way back. He's able to claw his way back from whatever hellhole he's been in, physically, mentally, whatever, and is able to come back as the Doctor we all know and love, or is at least able to bury it enough that he can keep up his persona.
I guess
that's what I like about him.
I will say, I want to say it was this is where we're going to really insult fans of the series. I want to say it was the 12th Doctor. Was the 12th Doctor the one who his life would end when he heard the knocks?
Is that Capaldi? Yeah, that's Capaldi.
Was that 12?
Yeah, because I was with the Impossible Astronaut.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Ish.
No, that wasn't with the Impossible Astronaut, was it?
The knock. I'm trying to
the
think
one
of the
where
knock.
It's like he hears the vision, or the person gives him the vision. It's like, your life will end when you hear 5 knocks or 4 knocks or something like that.
No, was that
or was that Matt Smith?
I think that was
Matt Smith.
Because that was when he was supposed to die, but they gave him his next set of lives.
No,
that was Matt Smith.
They gave Capaldi
then it wasn't
the
Matt
next
Smith.
set of. They gave
he was
Capaldi
the first resurrection after getting the new set of lives. Yeah, but Matt Smith was the one that died and then got the.
Who was the guy that wore the brown trench coat?
The brown trench coat? That was David Tennant.
The beige one.
The brown with blue?
No, like beige one. Yeah, I think so.
Brown with blue was Tennant.
Then it was Tennant.
Tennant, the knocking with Tennant. I can't remember. I don't remember the knocking. I should. I've seen all the episodes. I just can't remember.
With where the big twist was Yana. You are not alone.
That sounds like Tennant.
Don't blink.
Yana sounds like Tennant.
Damn it, I blinked. They had great episodes, but we're going way down a rabbit hole here.
Okay.
I was just gonna say,
I have a horrible memory is my only problem.
The whole you will die when you hear the knocking, or this life will end when you hear the knocking, I thought was a great moment.
That was Tennant. I remember now. That was Tennant.
Because I just felt like that was great, because that was one where you saw him win, but then right afterwards you hear just the very quiet knock, and that's how he lost.
Because it's actually how that ended up happening was he thought he was a god. He essentially thought he was a time god, that time was on his side. He could do whatever he wanted. And there was a person who was supposed to die on a spaceship. It was in history. It was a marked point, and he rescued that person. He went in and saved her and took her home. And he was walking away like, I did it. I beat time. I beat death. I am a god. And then she ended up shooting herself in the head from the guilt.
Oh, that's right.
And he walked away and he heard that. And then I think at the end of that episode was where
you
hear the knocking. It's like, oh,
it wasn't the end of that episode. It was the end of like one of the bigger one, but it was very much
because that was the finale.
No, because it's the one where he fights the other Time Lord guy.
The Master?
Yeah.
He doesn't die against the Master.
Yeah, he does. He beats the Master.
I could be remembering wrong.
He beats the Master because he's doing the whole thing where he learns about the knock, so he's like constantly knocking on things to scare him, and then he beats the Master, and then afterwards just a regular person is knocking on a door, and he turns around, he's like, oh God, no, this is when I die.
I don't remember.
But we're going way down into a rabbit hole.
Who would you say the best antagonist in Doctor Who has been?
I mean, it's so easy to say the Weeping Angels just because they're terrifying.
Well, they're scary bad guys. I don't think they're great
I wouldn't say they're the best antagonist.
I'm
trying to remember because there's so many episodes.
There's so a lot. I like.
What
was his name? Dalek Khan?
Dalek Khan? Is that the one who wanted to become human?
Yeah. Well, there's one that's like he's a mutated version of the Daleks. I'm probably saying that wrong, actually. But he's like a mutated version of the Daleks, and he convinces the Doctor that he wants to be good. He wants to go against his natural state. He wants to rebel against what a Dalek is. And and it's like half of the season is about him trying to be redeemed through the Doctor. And then at the very end, he tries to kill the Doctor. Fails, but makes a solid attempt at the Doctor. And that's what ends up getting him killed. I think it was Dalek Khan. I may be confusing. There was a couple of the big Dalek.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Dalek,
like
if you want, the Dalek are the penultimate protagonist in Doctor Who. They're the overall, we are the number one bad guy.
Yeah. Cybermen are pretty good, too.
Yeah. Cybermen are pretty good. I would almost say the alternate reality Cybermen one.
The Cybermen?
Yeah, the one where Rose eventually gets left in that universe.
Yeah, that's Cybus.
I'd say those were the best protagonists, I think.
Best sidekick ever.
Best sidekick? Oh,
Rose.
that's
Rose.
easily.
It's
Rose.
easily. Well,
Rose.
I didn't like Rose. But
actually, Rose was a fantastic sidekick. I do love that character. I have to say the better one was Swan.
Don't. No.
Swan. What?
No. Corner.
She was better.
Corner.
She had a much better story.
Corner.
You mean, are you talking River?
No, River Song is her daughter. Spoiler
Emily
alert.
Pond.
Pond. Why did I say Swan?
I was
Pond.
like Swan. Actually, I think Emily Pond. I think that whole arc. Now we're just getting
I
straight
don't
Doctor
know who
Who
you
talk.
were talking about, even though you said the wrong name.
I don't know. I had no idea.
The reason I thought Swan is what's on a pond.
All I could think was Fallout 4. I was like, what?
That might be. I don't know.
Not
Pond,
right.
you're right. Why is it calling her Swan?
Yeah, because River Song is Melody
Swan
Pond.
was a much better arc.
Spoiler.
The Girl Without a
spoilers.
Past.
That's sorry.
The
I
Girl
was
Without a
getting
Past was a much better story arc. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I like Rose. Everyone loves Rose as a character. The big bad wolf. The reason why I'd say Pond over Rose, though, in terms of a character, is Rose as a protagonist sidekick character. Well, actually, no, she was a protagonist. The Doctor and Rose were simultaneously protagonists. As a protagonist, she was really along for the ride. She was a vehicle for explanation for most of the series. Only at really 2 or 3 points did she actually engage and do things. Pond actively engaged, actively sought out things, actively drove the story forward.
Absolutely. And in major ways that I guess still have effect dealing with the 12th Doctor,
Yeah.
Capaldi.
Yeah, I guess she has come back in some of the
You're
recent
staring
stuff.
at me. Why?
I haven't seen any of the newest
Sherlock.
Doctor.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
not-
move on to Sherlock.
I'm,
We're
I'm
talking.
bored with Doctor Who at this point. I want to talk Sherlock.
We'll stick BBC. I'm okay with it.
after
Well,
Sherlock,
General Sherlock Holmes, I guess, not
After
just
Sherlock,
BBC.
there's
I know
somewhere
the
else I wanna
general
go
Sherlock.
to.
I've not seen the TV show Sherlock, but I do know
Oh
the
my god, you got
regular
me addicted
Sherlock
to
Holmes.
this Sherlock.
Yeah, the BBC Sherlock is phenomenal television.
Cumbersnatch.
I've heard. I need to watch it.
Yeah, with Benedict Cucumber and Martin Freeman.
They did. It's a fantastic. The two of them together are fantastic.
It's perfect casting.
It's perfect casting. The way they both hold themselves, and then when you throw in the guy who does Moriarty,
Yeah, I can't ever remember his
you
name.
can't. Yeah, but you can't
Well, I would
ask for you can't ask for a better antagonist or villain for that matter.
I
Well,
will
it's
say
a well played. It was a well played Moriarty. Moriarty generally isn't a big villain. He's one of the antagonists in the story.
Yeah.
The what the hell is the name of that story?
I forget. I've read some of them, but I
Can't
get
remember.
them mixed up all the time.
Yeah,
It's been ages.
I get the episode names of Sherlock, the BBC series, mixed up with the names of the actual stories because they're just slightly different.
Yeah.
Just enough to throw me off. But
But I would say Moriarty though is a great antagonist.
it's a
Because
great game. That's it.
He is Sherlock, but an evil Sherlock.
Kind of. Yeah, he's a person that can match Sherlock's intelligence and arguably is more intelligent.
Right. I mean, that's why the greatest one is if we go to the movies, which I know the movies take some liberties with the books and all that, but
Yeah, it's all liberties.
the second one that scene where it's because in the movies the way they did Sherlock working out things, which is a little bit different than in the books.
Wait,
but
which movie are you talking about?
the second one?
Are you talking Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah,
Spike Lee?
the Robert Downey Jr. ones.
Yeah, it's Spike Lee's. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the second one, was it a Game of Shadows? Yeah. They've set this thing up over both movies that their interpretation of the way Sherlock works through is it kind of slows down time and it shows him thinking out and explaining what he's going to do and how the scenario will work out. The scene in the Game of Shadows where he starts doing that and then he gets interrupted and then Moriarty is doing it as well, and it's them going back and forth explaining what each of them will do in turn, was the perfect way to show that it's Moriarty matches him exactly the way he does. That Sherlock doesn't have this power that he normally has over him.
Well, I think what really signifies Moriarty is just a great antagonist. Going back to the original story of the Great Game, the only way Sherlock can defeat him is to fake his death.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how he's able to beat Moriarty. Is Moriarty kills himself and Sherlock fakes his death.
Well, technically, at the time of writing, Sherlock was supposed to be dead, but that goes to the right.
Yeah, I'm talking as a general whole.
As a general whole, whether the writer intended it or not, I agree with you there. And that's the way that Sherlock one-ups Moriarty in the end.
Yeah. That's the only way he can beat him. I think that they have a great dynamic, those two. It's fun watching that happen.
It says a lot about an antagonist, though, that when the only way you can be beaten is if your enemy has to fake their death.
Well, because from Moriarty's perspective, both of them were dying. That was the end of both of them, and that's the only way any of them could.
It's a good antagonist when the only way that they can be defeated is for both sides to lose.
Yeah.
And you see that in a lot of stories where it's the sacrifice required. I mean, that's a very common reoccurring theme.
But it's usually not the protagonist directly sacrificing. It's losing something that he cares about. But to actually have the protagonist and antagonist both die or lose permanently, like have a significant
Well, I mean, that's why
direct
I think,
loss.
Taking a dip over to something that I'm sure neither of y'all are going to care about, that's why I think Khan is considered one of the best antagonists ever made from Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
I know zero about Star Trek.
Regardless of your feelings about Star Trek,
no,
Khan is an amazing villain.
I would say that the Borg are a slightly better set of villains.
Oh, they're a better set, but Khan...
I would say that they're better than Khan.
Khan as an individual antagonist, though, is phenomenal. Because his whole story is the story of where you had the chance to kill me, you chose not to, and now I'm coming back and I'm going to destroy you. His only goal is to destroy Kirk in Wrath of Khan.
Silence!
What?
I didn't realize that would work. That's one of the things he does from Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
I think the Borg are a better set. This unstoppable force that assimilates everything, and it's a one collective mind, like a beehive. I feel that that's a better set of...
You mean the Zerg from StarCraft?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't like that in an antagonist.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like when something
all powerful antagonists are a little...
Yeah, because then it's usually they got to find some kind of cheesy loophole to defeat them, because otherwise they can't. There's no actually.
They're the Superman of antagonists.
Yeah, it's the same reason I don't like Superman. I don't like that in a. I don't know anything about. Was it Borg?
The Borg.
The Borg. I don't know anything about Star Trek, but yeah, that sounds like an antagonist I just don't like. I didn't like the Collector in Mass Effect 2.
The Collectors.
Yeah, I hated that mentality of, well, there actually are an overwhelming force. You just kind of find a loophole. Yeah, this gets rid of them.
Yeah.
That to me
Let's
feels...
blow up their ship.
Yeah.
I mean, the Reapers were kind of... The way they handled the end of the Reapers, it kind of puts me in the same the same boat. Up until the last part of Mass Effect 3, I thought the way they handled the Reapers as an antagonist of, this is an overwhelming force, but the reason it's always overwhelmed is because before they appear, they divide the galaxy so that there's no unified force against them.
Well, but they're an unbeatable force anyway, not thinking strategically. Yeah, they've got great strategy involved, but how are you going to stop them anyway?
Right.
You can't stop them without some kind of loophole.
The Reapers were a great overwhelming force because of strategy.
I thought they were just by number.
By number, but also by strategy, because that was the whole story is the Reapers have always incented strife before they appear. so that there's always a war that wipes out most of the military before they show up.
Okay, I see what you're
So
saying.
that's why in 3 the big deal is you're unifying everyone, and then that's all bullshit because you flip a magic switch and pick one of 3 options. But
I don't remember much of the Mass Effect story, to be honest.
I've got one that we could possibly end on.
Okay, what you got? Yeah, because
James-
we are about to wrap up.
James Bond, 007. With the varying amount.
That's
of
really what we're going to end on.
how's about Mario and Bowser? Classic.
I don't like them. Either
Bowser's
of them.
bad
I don't
guy
like
because
either of
he
them.
has the
Fuck it, I'm
princess.
done.
All right, are we done?
We're not. No, we'll go
We
into
can
those.
go into James Bond.
I mean,
We'll go into both.
007, you've got your super sexy British spy with a myriad of well-defined antagonists, so it's very obvious. But by far his best set of antagonists was Spectre. He never won.
Spectre was the most solid antagonist. The rest were just goofy.
Yeah.
And James Bond is a B movie thing at its core. It's a
Whoa.
B movie.
Whoa.
Are you kidding me? Go watch Octopussy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a very B movie. I mean, none of them are great. They're fun. They're action.
most
They're kind of cool.
recent
They're like
ones
Mission
are
Impossible. They're not
bit better.
good. They're just
Well, the most recent ones
They're
are Mission
fun. Why
Impossible.
not?
The older ones are not.
Time out. If you're comparing James Bond to Mission Impossible, there's just no talking to you anymore.
You realize now anyway, they're essentially equivalent.
No.
The past 3
They are.
James Bond are basically
there's
Mission
no talking
Impossible.
to you anymore. Okay, we're done. I'm giving up on this conversation.
Okay.
It's like we're comparing apples to bananas.
So fine, then we're
No,
ending
it's like
on
comparing
the
apples and
original,
oranges.
the
apples
original
and bananas.
video game antagonist and protagonist, Mario and Bowser.
I hate 'em.
False. They're not the original.
Okay, fine.
Antagonist.
The ball and the paddle from Pong. Great.
And even then, you
rhythmic
can go
story.
even farther back because the original game started at MIT.
Fair enough. So Galaga
Yeah, but it was
versus the
Pong.
aliens, because
No,
that
it-
basically is what Galaga
Yeah, it was a
was.
lithograph.
No,
lithograph.
the original
It was a
MIT
light-
game was very similar to Galaga.
Yeah,
Was it similar? I thought it was similar to Pong, where
No.
it was,
No,
but it
it
was
was
just a
very
light
similar to
based.
Galaga.
it was Galaga because it was it turned into like a competition thing between 2 players.
I'm 90% sure it was Pong because Galaga is way too complex for the
I will
machine they
bet
were
you
using.
lunch.
Okay, if food's involved, I'm looking this up. Y'all keep going.
But so, I mean, Mario and Bowser. Granted, now they've tried to add some. Well, not tried. They've added characters to the story or character to the characters. But I mean, that was originally, as far as protagonist and antagonist goes. Here you are, little red guy who eats mushrooms to become bigger red guy, in weird pixelated turtle that you hit a hammer to make a bridge disappear over. I want to know, how have those become 2 such symbolic antagonist and protagonist? Apparently, we're having a
Steve?
moment of silence.
What?
You're supposed to.
Oh, I'm supposed to be
I'm looking this up.
Well, fine, I'm going to get on my phone, too.
there. Space War, Galaga.
You just brought up a Wikipedia page of a game. I'm
We will
looking at-
settle this after the podcast. We have stuff to record
No. APS Physics. It's an organization.
here. Oh, my God. We were really all just on our
Space
phones
War
looking
is
this
a
up.
space combat video game developed in 1962
1962. Ha. 1952 for this. Or
as
51.
one of the first games created in the early history of video games.
But was it created... When was Pong created? Because if it was created before Pong, Steve wins.
Okay,
Stand
so
by.
this idea here.
This
This
great
was,
audio podcast.
Shut up.
I'm sure everyone's enjoying this.
Physicist William Higginbotham, which is a badass name, in October of 1958, created what is thought to be the first video game. It was a very simple tennis game, similar to the classic 1970s video game Pong. It was created on, and I'm gonna, where to go? It's a long word and a lot of words. What the hell was that?
It's a long word and a lot of words.
There's a lot of words, and this is a long
it's
word.
a paradox
in the middle
unto
of
itself.
oscilloscope.
I
is
know
what
what
it-
an oscilloscope is.
But yeah, it was an instrumentation group, had a small analog computer that could display various curves, including the path of a bouncing ball on an oscilloscope,
Yes.
I think. It took Higginbotham only a couple hours to conceive the idea of a tennis game and only a few days to put together the basic pieces. Having worked on displays, radar systems, and other electronic devices, Higginbotham had no trouble designing this simple game display. This was in 1958.
Okay. buy you simple lunch.
You owe me.
Technically,
It's official.
Technically,
it's on recording.
While yours came out before Pong, yours was a Galaga similar game and his was a Pong similar game. So I gotta give it to Fred.
Well, at the end of the day, it was the first game. It was the first video-based game.
Okay.
Visual-based game like that. I win.
You win.
Yeah.
You're my antagonist.
Did you ever see that really?
You are my antagonist.
I am your supervillain.
On a side story, did y'all ever see that like really old, like back in the 20s when the Turing machine was first made? The article that wrote saying that one day Turing machines will become so powerful, people will play chess on them, where a person will make a move, transmit it halfway around the world in a matter of moments, and another person will move a chess piece and transmit it back, and it described the world's very first video game.
You just reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from all of technology, and I gotta find that now.
Okay, so while he's looking this up, we're going to push this audio podcast along, since no one can see us staring at our phones.
It's
How has Mario and Bowser become like the quintessential antagonist protagonist in video games? It's Red Pixel Plumber versus Green Turtle, and the only story there was Princess in Castle. That thing is at the end of the castle.
I'm gonna go with Duck Hunter is more of the quintessential.
You think Duck Hunter is more of the iconic video
Man
game?
with gun, shoot duck, duck bad guy. I win.
But no, it's like if you were to look in like video game antagonist protagonist, I guarantee you Mario and Bowser would be like one of the top 5. You know, let me Google this right now.
Legend of Zelda, actually.
I'd agree with you there.
I put Legend of Zelda above Mario, to be honest, because at
even
least
then-
Legend of Zelda has more of a baseline of fetching princess.
Yeah, but no, I mean that's the thing is it's both of them started out with absolutely no real story behind these characters other than good guy, bad guy, go. Yet they are like two of the most iconic sets, and I struggle to find anything that stands out when you talk video game hero villain pair as much as those.
How have we not brought up the relatively horrible show Heroes at all?
Heroes had a good antagonist. It just
Heroes
had terrible
was great
execution
for one season.
The very first season.
until the finale of that season.
Yeah, how long did it last? That
Uh,
was what, a quarter of it?
technically 5 seasons.
It was 4, and then it had the little
But no, that's the problem. Is
Hero Reborn.
No, there was
Was-
technically 5 seasons. They
There's only 4.
merged. They merged season 3. They merged both of those two into one season
Well, but it was released as 4 seasons.
on DVD. Yes,
And
But
on
they mer-
Netflix, that's all. That's
but
where I watched it.
Yeah, they merged season 3.
but yeah,
Season 3
Heroes-
was actually 3 and 4. 'cause the
Heroes
Carnival was
actually
5.
had a great set of antagonists for most of the seasons. It was just terrible execution on them.
I've almost found it. I promise. I'm looking for this quote.
But
Fred, you're slacking.
I know I'm horrible.
I'm having a
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
having a
here it
terrible
is.
time vamping.
So, Popular Mechanics, 1949, said, "Computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons." It's one of my favorite quotes about early technology.
Computers
Think
of the
about that.
future may only weigh 1.5 tons.
No
Think about
more.
that. This is at a time where one computer took up the room of what is now server farms for Google.
Yeah, they would hire or they would build buildings to store a computer.
Store a single computer in. This is 1949. This was from Popular Mechanics. Still around today. Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes about early technology. Why was that relevant again?
Because of the old, like back in World War II, the first described video game.
Oh yeah. I had to go on that little run for a minute.
Okay.
That was fun. So that
You feel bad? You feel
Yeah.
good about yourself?
I feel
Yeah.
good. You know what?
I just like
I
because
feel good
back
about this
then it was
podcast.
meant as a joke.
God damn it! I was trying to end.
Oh, cut me out.
You're fired!
Wait, I was hired?
Fired!
No, we're gonna dock your pay when you start to get paid.
Aw.
So we'll get paid, and then you gotta wait 2 weeks.
Isn't that most professions in the world though?
I thought we got paid on a monthly basis. Doesn't he have to wait a whole month?
True, 2 months.
Fuck you, Steve.
Paid deduction!
I'm gonna remember this.
Paid deduction.
When you start playing ESO with me, I'm gonna remember this. You're gonna be asking me to help you out. I'm just gonna be sitting there flipping my gold coins, staring at you, laughing.
You're a dick.
That's why I won't.
But
play
we
it,
love
so
you.
I'll stick with Destiny and my set of antagonists.
And that's the Desynced podcast. It was fun.
Peace out, y'all.
I hope that made some sense. We kind of rambled on. It was a fun topic. I like that.
Yeah,
It was good. All right.
It did good. Woohoo!
Do you think the Guardian is a good protagonist?
Hey, shut it. We're ending.
The podcast, but not the conversation.
Shut it. We're ending.
Bye, y'all.
Peace out, guys.
Bye.